This is the #1 podcast whether you're looking to flip, wholesale, or buy rentals. Here at Future Flipper, we transform lives through real estate investing. And now, your host, Brian Davila.
What's up, guys? It's your favorite real estate investor, Brian Davila, and today I am interviewing someone very special. He is probably the biggest wholesaler in Southern California. You are not going to want to miss this interview. But before I introduce him, we are having an event September 26th through the 28th in Las Vegas. We have Alex Hermosi and Layla Hermosi speaking at this event. We have other guests like Matt Onifero, AJ Osborne, Tiffany and Josh High, just a bunch of heavy hitters. So if you're interested in coming, go to futureflipper.com. You could use the promo code Brian and get a ticket for as low as $500. You don't want to miss this event. But now let's get into the podcast with the biggest wholesaler in Southern California, Scott Oots. How are you doing, brother?
Good, man. How are you?
I am very excited to speak to you and see what you're doing.
Sweet. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so I've actually known Scott maybe for 5 or 6 years now. And he's been growing and growing, and you're always pretty much what I see is the leader of the wholesale space in Southern California. So I'm excited to see, I guess how last year went, and then what are you doing this year with, the market changes and stuff like that?
Absolutely. Last year definitely was a fun year. It was a big turning point for me. We made a lot of changes in our business. So, I mean, we definitely broke records last year. We accomplished a lot of goals. We accomplished the goals and we crushed the goals, which was absolutely amazing. We spend a lot of time on building our team and community here, making sure that our team is basically a family to us. So we spent a lot of time working on that, but last year was a fun year. I mean, anyone in real estate had a lot of fun last year with the market the way it was. I mean, throwing properties on the market. I mean, you know what it's like. You do flips all the time, right? So throwing these things on there and getting 20 offers in like the first 30 minutes, $100,000 over asking, you're just like, wow. Like, we know as investors, there's no way it's going to continue. Like, we know that was going to end. But man, we were having so much fun just seeing what we can do with houses and how much people were willing to pay for these things. I mean, it is absolutely crazy. You can have a house you do no rehab to, and it's $100,000 over market, and people are just like, I want you to accept my offer now. Accept my offer now. I'll pull $100,000 out of my 401k. I'll pull it out of my IRA. You're just like, dude, you guys are nuts, but okay. So we had a lot of fun with that. We definitely listed a lot more properties last year just because of that.
Oh, really?
But when we look at kind of the year in general, I mean, it was definitely a record year for us. But we also you kind of look, are we on a cliff? Are we getting ready to fall off? Just because we know as investors that's not sustainable. That can't continue to happen. And the thing is, I wasn't investing in 2008. Right. So I know a lot of guys, when they start looking at the market and going that high, everyone starts screaming, 2008's coming back. We're going to drop. We're going to drop. And of course, you got to worry about that a little bit at that time because you never know what's going to happen. But that's why I like the wholesale game. It is very safe for things like that. I mean, you get a house under contract, you make your assignment fee, you're in and out of this house so fast. But when we look at starting out this year, I mean, this year started out strong, really strong. So the first quarter was definitely good. I made a lot of changes to my team in the first quarter. We basically have an entirely new team, entirely new office. We've got everything changed. So this has been a rebuilding year for us. It's definitely a time where we slowed down just because we were training up brand new people. Really, I think we've got about 3 people with our team now that were with my previous one. Otherwise, everyone else is gone. We started fresh. It was time for us to get some fresh blood in here and start moving on. And honestly, that decision was the best decision I've ever made in business. I love the guys that were with us, and I wish them the best. But ultimately, the company needed to make changes, and we needed to move forward to get to that next level. And so this year's been a tough one for me, just because it is stepping back into the operation and training. But when we look at, the last 60 days or so, we all know what's happened in the last 60 days. I mean, as interest rates have gone up, you look at all these houses on the market, everything's price reduction, price reduction. So luckily for us, we don't hold a lot of properties.
Yeah.
But last month wasn't a fun month for us. I mean, as soon as those price reductions happened, all of our buyers were coming to us saying, "Hey, I can't do this. I can't perform." Right. And we were dealing with that. I have been holding one property up in Victorville for about 90 days now. That we haven't lowered
eternity.
the price on. Yeah, I feel like, dude, I feel like 90 days. Like, used to holding a property in the last year for like 3 days, and then you got like a 30-day escrow. Yeah, we've been holding it for 90 days. But the thing is, we've gotten so many offers, but they're all FHA. So we just have to wait until this Sunday, and then we hit the 90-day mark, and then we can literally take one of them. We've got offers over asking, offers at asking, and we're ready to go. We just got to wait for that FHA 90 days. So that house has been sitting there. It's definitely showing me that things are sitting on the market a lot longer. Yeah. But the beauty of it is we're not having to do a price reduction on it yet. So I don't think we will with the offers we have. But ultimately, I mean, for us, we're not taking anything else down right now just because we don't know exactly what's going to happen. But on the other hand, I also think that could be a mistake. I mean, it's a good opportunity to get some properties flipped and on the market just because they are still selling. It's just I'm less of a risk taker on those things probably than you are. I know you take down a lot of properties and flip them.
Yeah, I take a lot of properties down, and like the last 2 years, it was like shooting fish in a barrel with dynamite. It was like, dude, I would buy properties. Honestly, I'll be honest here. I would buy properties and let them sit without being worked on, and then come back, work on them, and list them. Where obviously, like in this market, that's not smart because you just don't know what's going on. But I guess let's rewind a little bit. So. I know that you've been in wholesale for a while. I guess like what got you into wholesale, and then what got you here today?
Absolutely. So it was actually around 2014, 2013, right in there. So my wife and I were buying properties at the auctions. So we would go to the courthouse steps. Basically, we would go to the bank. We would withdraw every dollar we had in our account, put them into cashier's checks because that's what you got to bring to the auctions. Go to the auctions with a handful of cashier's checks, knowing the properties we're going to bid on. We would go there, start bidding, we'd lose, go put the money back in the bank. 3 days later, withdraw it, go back to the steps, try again. And then, of course, every time we win a bid on a property, we're like, wait, why did we win this? What do they know that we didn't know? But we started getting a few. But ultimately, the auction steps wasn't really a sustainable model because there was just too many people, a lot of foreign money trying to place in the U.S., right? So you got a lot of people that are bidding like ARV on properties at these auctions. There's no way we can compete with that. So we would get a few properties, and finally we started saying we have to find other ways to get houses. We enjoy fix and flipping, but we can't continue to go to these auctions. It's not a sustainable model for us. So at that point, we started trying to figure out how do we get properties before they hit the auction. So we started just doing some research, and we actually ran into someone who's a good friend and mentor now, Sean Terry. So he's got his Flip to Freedom program. We saw him pop up. His attitude, the way he drew us in was just how excited he was on all of his videos. So basically, we bought his program, started going through that, trying to figure out, like, I didn't even want to wholesale at that point. I didn't even know what wholesaling was. I just wanted to figure out how do I get these properties before they hit the auctions, right? So we started watching all this stuff, and then we got a call from somebody in his program basically saying, hey, Sean's got this additional mentor program. And I said, you know what? Let's do this because I don't want to spend the next 2 months watching these videos. I'd rather go spend 2 days just getting like a cram session of everything I need to know. So we did it. We flew out to Arizona 2 weeks later, sat in Sean's office for 2 days, and left with just a brain dump of knowledge. Sean is just pouring into us on all this stuff. And came back, and we already had a direct mail campaign set up. We had PPC set up, everything by the time we even stepped foot back in California. And we basically started from there, started getting phone calls in, And as I started taking those calls, I sucked. Like I was just dropping leads like crazy. You know, you don't know what to say. The phone rings the first time in. You're like, hi. And I'm looking at this. I'm like, all right, I screwed that deal up. All right, I screwed this deal up. And it just kept happening. But I started getting better. It took me about 2 weeks, two and a half weeks of messing with leads to get that first deal in the door. And that first deal in the door definitely didn't make a lot of money. It was like $4,200. But you know what? That was the best $4,200 I made up until today. I mean, we've had $100,000 spread since then, but that money showed me it was possible. And it didn't matter how small that wholesale spread was. It showed me that this is possible to do something a different way. So I took that 4,200 and we put it right back in, all of it back into the business, kind of like dropping it on red in Vegas, right? We just said, let's try it. We're going to drop it in, see what happens. And ultimately we kept getting a return from it. We got another deal, and we just kept putting it all back in. So that was about September of 2014, right in there. And our first full year in business was the next year. And ultimately we did about 1.5 the next year. Ended that year with 2 people on our team besides me and my wife. We pushed to grow fast. And we invested in it, invested in ourselves. And, you know, the biggest thing I see people do is just truly not believing in themselves. You know, people, they're so scared. Like I was speaking at a meetup last night, and the biggest thing I asked people, who here wants this to be their primary business? And pretty much everyone raised their hand. And then I said, who here hasn't had a deal yet? They raised their hand. And then I said, who here hasn't even made the first call? And out of 100 people in that room, there was probably like 10 that raised their hand saying they haven't even made their first call. But they sat and watched YouTube videos, and they sat and watched all this stuff. And I'm like, the biggest thing that people don't do is they don't take action. Make that call. Like I said, I sucked. I was so bad on those calls. And the thing is look at where we are today. Like we grew this business so far from that point. And if you don't make that first call, you never know what's going to happen with that, right? You don't give yourself the chance to even try to succeed if you don't hop on that phone call. So that's what we did. And we grew from there every year, implementing new marketing channels. I am huge into changing, right? Like I want to look at the way we're doing something and find a better way, and then tear it apart again and find a better way. And we have changed so many things in our company over the years to try to become more profitable, leaner, better at marketing. And it's been a fun ride. I mean, we met along the way as well. We met at one of my first properties we did. So it's been a long time. Yeah, I don't remember which one that was, but I know that's you basically came on board pretty early in my company history. So
yeah, because I remember you had that office in like Corona. It was like a little office at the time. You didn't have a big team, but
yeah,
I guess so. Like, so 2015, you already hit 6 figures, and then how has like the revenue grown? Have you like doubled every year, or what's like how's the growth been?
Absolutely. I mean, last year, like we said, was kind of an anomaly. Last year was a year where we really shot up. But yeah, every year we've almost doubled our revenue. This year we won't double from last year, so this will be the first year that we won't. And part of the reason is just, you know, it's a rebuilding year for us. You know, we've got brand new team. We're looking at a lot of changes on things we're doing. It was weird to see over the year we double every year, and then looking at this year and saying there's no way we're going to double this year. There's just no way. And I have to get that out of my head that there's not going to be doubling every single year. It's just not going to happen. It is a hard pill to swallow when you're like, all right, we've doubled this year. Yeah. And then last year shot up so much. It's like, it's impossible. There's no way we're going to double it this year. But this year's been a lot of fun. And honestly, I think I have learned more this year than I have in any year previous in business. And part of it is like, you know, going through a team transition and things like that. Everyone always wants to come out and say that they have the best team in the world and that their team is so loyal and so great. And honestly, I respect the people that are no longer with me, but it's crazy how fast that can change. You look at it and say that people that you've taken care of for a very long time that have been like family are no longer with you anymore. And you have to go through and you have to learn from mistakes, because I think I've kept people a little too close in the past within my business, and they have been family. And that's why I have to really look at that and separate it. I own the business. I have to have great relationships with my employees, but I also have to look at them like employees. And that was definitely a mistake in the past. So now we're definitely have a great culture. I think even a better culture than we had previously, but it's more arm's length. We have people that they know that I value them and I'm here for them no matter what. But on the other hand, I'm not going to their birthdays. I'm not traveling with them. I'm not doing things like that, because ultimately that clouds my judgment as a business owner doing those things. I have to be able to keep those people at a certain distance, because honestly, if something happens where they're not performing, I don't want to have the friend mentality over the employee mentality. I need to be able to say to them, hey, you're not performing and we need to work on getting you to accomplish your goals. And that's really hard to do when you've got people that are really close as potentially friends. So it's been definitely a learning experience. You look back and you look at wins and mistakes that you've had in the past. And this last year, we've had a ton of wins, but we've also had a ton of mistakes, right? We look at it and say that managing and KPIs, a lot of people don't track KPIs in their business. We always did, but we didn't track them as granular as we did towards the end of last year. A lot of things came to light that looked like they were positives before, but turned out they weren't. You look at it and say, wow, okay, we're meeting our numbers, but our phone time for the sales reps is ridiculously low. We got to get this up, because if we're already this good, we could double it based on increasing our time on the phone and things like that as well. So it's been a learning experience. This year has been definitely fun. We've regrown with a stronger team. We've grown with people that are coming into our new culture. So it's been exciting, man. I've really enjoyed it. And honestly, my stress level this year is way less than it was last year, and I'm actually more involved in the operation right now, starting to step my way back out now that I have my COO in place running things. But I'm looking forward to kind of towards the end of this year being able to have a team running very, very smooth, where I don't have to be part of that daily operation like I was previously.
Yeah, and I remember I interviewed you. I think it was like 2020. I don't remember, but I think you were on track to do 6 million that year. Do you remember? Was it 5 or 6 million?
If it was 2020, it was probably 5 something. Yeah, probably closer to 6. I think it was like 5.6 if I remember correctly. So.
And then were you able to double that?
No, we didn't fully double that. So the thing is about books is everyone talks about gross revenue and net revenue, right? Everyone always goes out there, they pull their gross revenue number and they go out there and say how awesome they are. Because when you buy houses, we'd buy a lot cash to fix and flip, and we did a lot of that kind of stuff last year. So obviously that purchase is on our gross revenue. It really inflates.
It's not the same as wholesaling.
For me, I think there's really 3 things. There's your gross revenue, which is your total, your modified gross that is taking out those purchases, and then your net. So if we look at the number everyone uses for gross, we're really looking at probably somewhere around 9.5. But if you look at that modified gross, we're closer to 8.
That's so really good, man.
Well, last year was a crazy year, like we talked about.
But the way you were saying it, I was like, all right, like, is it? Maybe he went up to 6 only, but yeah, that's still $8 million in gross wholesale fees is still a huge number.
Yeah.
That's
it was a lot of fun, man. I mean, we look at it and I look back and I say that the bells we rang, the fun we had, there was a ton of fun that happened last year. And I want to bring some of that into this year, but this year is definitely one of those years where, like I said, it's a rebuilding year. What do? We gotta build back up and get ourselves to that point.
Okay, so I just wanna live in the glory day of 2021 really quick, and then we'll get into the changes and the scaling and all that stuff. What was it like seeing that much revenue come in? Because $8 million, that's about $800,000 a month. Like, what does that feel like? What were you thinking while it was going on?
I mean, the thing is that it went up and down so much. There's some months where it's a huge revenue, and there's the next months where it's lower. So I wish I could say it was consistent every single month, but you get some crazy months where it's like you've got the income coming in, and it's like every week hundreds of thousands of dollars coming in. You're just like, oh my God, this is awesome. But then you've got weeks as well where it's like you're sitting there going, all right, I sure wish I would have held some rentals because I don't have the income coming in right now, right?
But what's a low week or month to you? Because a low month to you is probably everyone else's like best month.
So I mean, it costs us about $120,000 to run our operation every month. So if we have like $150,000 a month or something, that to me that is a horrible month for me because the profit margin's just not there. But for other people that, the people that right now are like, well, he thinks that's a low month. No. I'm not saying that. I'm saying because my costs are so high, that's a low month for me. But somebody else hitting $100,000 a month, I mean, damn, if your costs are only like 15, 20 grand a month, that is a killer month. And everyone always told me it's not the number that you hit for your gross revenue, right? It's what you keep. I mean, I'd rather do $1 million a year and keep 900 of it. Like that sounds perfect to me. But I think the thing about our industry, right, it got very flashy over the years. And there's a lot of people that focus so much time on what their gross revenue number is and stuff like that. And it's like, for me, I don't care what my gross revenue number is. I care what I pay in taxes and what I keep at the end of the year. And if my number is way lower, if I did $4 million, but I was able to keep 50, 60% of that, I'd be happy. Like, that's the thing. I mean, you look at your net profit margin on a lot of these things. A lot of these wholesaling companies I've seen, some of these guys are running at like a 10% net profit margin. And I'm like,
I've seen that also.
That's scary. Like, it's really scary. But then they're out there bragging about how they did $6 million. Well, you only kept 10% of it. Like, you got to go a little leaner, right? I want to have a 40% profit margin. And I sit in the 30s right now, but I'll tell you what, there's been months I've dropped to 20%. So as far as what we bring in each month, I'm not as concerned about that. I'm more concerned about what I keep each month. What can I physically put into my account or reinvest into the business each month? That's a number that I am more worried about as a business owner, when a lot of people are more worried about the gross revenue number. And we look at like my team and stuff like that. Like, I want them to take home more. The more net revenue we have, the more bonuses we can pay, the more, and honestly, money is a big motivating factor to sales teams. You want to have a sales team motivated by money, and getting these guys like doing that, dude, it feels good to have a high net profit margin where I can be like, hey, here's a $5,000 bonus for killing it.
Yeah. Okay. So I just want to ask you questions because I feel like this is so interesting. How much time do you spend a day working? Or at least last year?
I'll answer that in a two parts. So we'll do last year and this year. So last year, as far as the business, so my Superior Home Buyers business, I was probably spending about 10, 12 hours a week, maybe.
Working?
Well, that's just on that. But I also have my Lead Gen Pros cold calling company, and I've got my content creation and things like that. So last year, my content guy, Cody, me and him moved out of our office. It was about July of last year. I gave up my office. My team stayed there. I moved out, and my office was in Corona. So we got a little spot down on the Newport Peninsula, a little like 900 square foot spot, maybe not even that. And the two of us worked out of there. So I basically said, you know what? I'm going to go in and do some more of the content stuff because I love helping people grow their businesses. So what can I give back to people? So we basically moved down to this office and we started doing more content and had fun with it. We had a cool studio set up and everything like that. Then when I realized things were starting to go south with my team and I had to make some decisions, after I made those decisions, we closed our Corona office, closed our Newport office, and then now we're in Irvine, right across from John Wayne Airport, actually. And we have an office here with everybody back in it. So this year, I'm probably working 40 to 60 hours a week. I mean, we're
On your wholesale business.
Yeah, wholesale, and then content kind of we pushed it off a little bit just because we have been rebuilding. I've learned a lot, man. I've had to step back onto the phones with sellers a little bit. And actually, you know what? Like, I'm like getting that dust off because I'm like, I haven't done this since like probably 2016, 2017.
Yeah.
So it actually has been kind of fun to get back on the phone a little bit. But I'm ready to go back to start doing more content and things like that. I don't want to be part of the day-to-day. I want to move on from that and keep going to the next step. So I'm definitely working a lot more now. I would say out of my hours each week, probably 10, 15 of it is over towards my other companies, and then the majority is going to be my wholesale business.
That's crazy though that you managed to do. I know it's like an off year, but to gross 8 million and only work 10 hours a week on that business is crazy. So, okay. What about that's what you're working now. I guess let's go into mindset a little bit. So, I feel like most people would listen to this and think like, man, if I was grossing, whatever, that much revenue, I would not be willing to get back on the phones. At least for me, I know the way my mind works is like, oh, dude, I don't want to do this anymore because I did it for so many years. I freaking pounded the phones for years. So the thought of me getting back on the phones, I'm like, hell no. Like I will hire and delegate that because I just will not do it. I just won't do it. Why are you willing to get back in there after all this time and get back on the phones?
I mean, ultimately, the thing about being a business owner, and you know this, sometimes it's not a choice. You have to do it, right? I mean, I always said that I will not require my team to do anything that I will not do myself. And when we made these transitions, I mean, we went from a sales team that had 4 or 5 years of experience on some of these guys to guys that were brand new, green, and 2 days old at that point, right? So we had to go through and train them. I didn't have a choice. I could put them through sales training. I could put them through, Steve Trang stuff or John Martinez stuff. I could put them through all that. But the thing is that teaches them the overview of it, but it doesn't teach them on the phone, helping them, hand-holding, making calls. It doesn't do that. So yes, I could have very easily said, I'm not going to get back on the phone. But I promise you, if I wouldn't have got back on the phone, we wouldn't be here today. We didn't have a choice. So when you lose a position in your company that's important, you've got to step in. You've got to fill it. Because at that time, I mean, the people that left the company was, the majority of my sales team, and it was my COO. So typically, if someone leaves, my COO is going to fill that spot. But my COO, my new COO was very new. So he wasn't stepping on the phones. He had to learn the ins and outs of it. He had to learn how it is we talk to sellers, how we do things, how we make offers, how we do comps. There was a lot of things he had to learn that, unfortunately, I was the only one in the office that had sat in all those seats and had the knowledge. So I had to wake up the next morning after all this stuff went south, and I had to say, man, today is the day where I got to be more on my game than any day in the past, because I've got I don't just have a business starting out like I did back in 2015. I've got a business that's done multi-millions of dollars, and I got to keep this going. So without a drop in service, that was the biggest thing. So when we say, hey, do we want to hop back on the phones? Absolutely not. I don't want to hop back on the phones, but it's not really what I want to do. It's what I had to do at the time.
Very interesting. I guess your story to me, you know what you remind me of? The Golden State Warriors, because, they were crushing it, had KD, Steph Curry, Clay, crushing it. KD left, Steph got hurt, then Clay got hurt, Draymond got hurt, and then last year they got healthy and then won a championship. That's like the thought that keeps going through my mind. I don't know if you've made that.
And that's what I'm going for, that championship, right? And I know that championship is not going to be this year. I mean, by the end of the year, we're going to be strong. But all the different things we are implementing this year, creative finance strategies, we're going outside the box of the standard wholesale deal. We're going to have our rentals. We're going to have creative finance. We're going to have hopefully a realty team as well. There's a lot of different things we're launching that is you look at it now that I really look at the operation, I'm like, man, we did so well the last few years, and I could never regret what we did, but we missed a lot of opportunity. And that opportunity is a lot of these other areas of leads that have just been thrown away. You know, if it didn't work wholesale, those leads have sat there. And now it's time to get these other things going because it's millions of dollars.
Yeah. But yeah, it's super interesting because I did pay attention to the interviews and, you know, what the players said on the Golden State Warriors and like other sports teams where they talk about, you know, like sometimes players get traded. Sometimes players decide to leave. Even if they're on a championship team, they're like, hey, we want to bounce. And then you got to rebuild, refocus, develop new players to step in. And it's interesting. And I mean, I've gone through that too with Future Flipper and with my own team where I've had team members who were crushing it. And then for whatever silly reason, they, you know, things happen. But
yeah,
very interesting. So talked about mindset, talked about your schedule. I guess I want to talk about your skill set. To me, you don't seem like a sales guy. To me, you seem I don't know. You seem to me like more of an operations guy. Mm-hmm. Am I right, or what do you think?
Yeah, you nailed it. I mean, that's why I wanted to hire a sales team soon. Like sales at a certain point I enjoy, but it's not me. I'm definitely someone that's more. I will get you the leads, you close the leads. I will support you, but your job is to close them. So I have always been more of a owner manager than a sales guy in the past. But you know what? There was a time where I did enjoy sales. I had a lot of fun in sales. But it's also hard too because when you're out of something for so long and you've got basically as a business owner, our goal is to hire people better than us in every single position, right? So when we start a business, we're sitting in every single role and we build that org chart, and that org chart is all right, Scott up top, now Scott, over and over again through dispo, acquisitions, TC, all this kind of stuff. And then you look at this and say, all right, what is the first position that I should fill within a company? And you say, I'm sitting in this role right now, so now I'm going to hire someone to fill this, which knocks me out of that role. And now I'm still sitting in the other ones. Then you hire someone to fill one of the other ones, and then the other ones. And then pretty soon you have a team. But ultimately, I see a lot of people that go and hire based off of what they'll hire someone for what they hate doing the most. But in my mind, that's such a wrong decision. You hire someone to offset your weakness. So you may hate doing acquisitions, but it doesn't mean you hire someone for acquisitions because you hate it. If you're the worst at acquisitions and you know you can hire someone better than you, that's the position you fill. And you may have to sit with something like dispositions where you don't like doing because you're better at it. So I hired based on the positions that I needed to fill first, the positions that I knew I could find somebody better than me. And we've had a lot of successful hires over the years because of hiring that direction. And it's also helped us get the company to the next level. But absolutely, you're right. I'm not someone that wants to sit in that sales seat. I actually do enjoy talking to people, but I enjoy more problem solving. And I enjoy like trying to fix an issue than call over and over again. Yeah. That's just not me.
Yeah. You know, I like sales and I like talking to people, but I really don't like negotiating. Yeah. I'm actually like the laziest negotiator because I'm just like, dude, this is my offer. If you don't want it, great. I am not going to like sit here and like go back and forth about it. Yep. Where other people, like my old acquisition manager, he would just like, oh, you know, we would probably need to be lower, but I know you wouldn't take that. And he was willing to like sit here and have those conversations where I'm like, dude, 200, take it or leave it. I'm not going to your house. I'm going to send you a DocuSign. We're going to close in 7 days. It's going to be awesome, but this is where I'm at.
Yeah. You're in the same boat as me. Exact same thing, man. Like I'll talk to people all day long, but you know, what's crazy is we can both admit that that's not us, right? That we can go and give
Yeah.
a number, but we're not going to fully negotiate. But on the other hand, as a business owner, I have to go to my team and I have to tell them to do what I don't want to do, right?
know.
I got to go to
Yeah.
them and say, why
Yeah.
didn't you negotiate that? You should have negotiated that one. Although I know with me being
Yeah.
on the phone, I wouldn't have done it either. So,
Yeah.
but like I said, we're hiring people better. We're hiring people to level up what we are not doing. And
Yeah.
we have to expect that. We have to expect that they're going to go the extra mile and they're going to negotiate like crazy because they're paid very well to do it as well. So we need those people, but those people aren't us. We're not the people that are going to do that. I'll talk to people. I enjoy talking to sellers. I enjoy taking a seller that's completely pissed off and trying to make them happy. And at the end of the day, they leave a killer review like a seller we just had. I mean, he was so mad. We had to go for a price reduction. So mad at us. And after having a conversation with him, smoothing it over, the guy literally left us a killer review. And he's so happy. And we hit him with a $30,000 price reduction on his property. You would think he would hate us. But it's all about customer service and smoothing that over in the end. And ultimately, that's what I am very good at, is trying to leave the seller happy in the end, even though the news we gave them wasn't what they wanted to hear.
Yeah. And sometimes, like, got to do a price reduction. That's that's the reality of the situation. But
Absolutely.
all right. So, what about? I guess at your level, who do you go to for coaching and help?
Absolutely. The thing is no matter how much we grow, we will never stop needing coaching. We will never stop needing the ability to grow further and learn new things. The thing is just the coaching gets more expensive as you go. I spend probably 50 to 100 grand a year in coaching. So I'm in a master.
And I don't need to know like the exact coaches or the exact mastermind, but like what are you looking for when you're out there looking for coaching?
We all look for people to level us up, right? I want to be the dumbest person in the room. I want to be the person that walks in the room and I look at everyone doing 3 to 4 times what I'm doing. And I want to literally take in everything I can from these people. And I want to also figure out how can I give back to these people as well, because coaching as you grow is such a give and take. You have to be able to go into a room where you are the dumbest person in the room and you got to be able to find out, hey, how can I also offer something to these people? Because I've never been someone that fully just wants to take. I want to figure out how do I give back as well. Collective Genius is the mastermind I'm in. I mean, the great mastermind, high level real estate investors in there. There are some times where I sit in this room in there and I'm just like, dude, everything you guys are saying right now, like literally went over my head. Like, I'm so glad you guys are recording this because I have to go back and listen to this later, trying to figure out what the heck you guys are even saying. But being in rooms like that are so important. But the thing I learned about growing is there's a lot of coaches out there in the industry. I mean, you obviously work with Ryan Pineda, great guy. He's very successful at what he does. There's tidbits I've given him where he's been able to implement in his business, and there's things he's done as well for me. You develop good relationships with people that are on a similar level in the industry, and you actually start not caring so much about competition. There's a lot of competition in California, a ton of it, like every state. But man, there are so many real estate investors out there that I spend a lot of time talking to and sharing ideas back and forth. But you know what? There's so many houses out there. Rarely are we going to see each other. Like rarely. We're doing different things, but we still can share ideas back and forth. So I talk to a lot of those guys too, which are free conversations. You know, I mean, you and I can have a conversation. I could tell you what I'm doing, and we're probably never going to see each other at the appointment, even if you do implement that thing. So we can't be afraid of sharing ideas back and forth, because if you share and you're a giver, you're going to be able to also receive stuff back as well. So I will always spend money on coaching, and I will always level up to the next mastermind or the next thing that's going to get me where I want to get. Now I'm looking at apartment investing and things like that I'm potentially looking at doing. And that's going to be a fun thing to do, but it's also going to have to put me around a whole different group of people that I haven't spent time around before.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So like apartments, some like new things like that. I think for me personally, I want to get into commercial now because I've been doing single family for 7 years. And I think if I would have bought in a few commercial buildings, I would be like my net worth would maybe be double.
Yeah.
My cash flow would probably be double or triple. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that makes sense.
And there's been a lot of those out there too because of the work from home craze that was going for so long. I mean, my office building in Corona, I mean, that thing was empty. Towards the end of COVID, there was so many empty spots in there, and it was not getting filled. And even the building I'm in now, it's a fully remodeled building. It's a nice office, but we're the only one on this floor. Otherwise, they're all empty. So I think that for a while, everyone thought work from home was going to be like the new thing that was going to go on forever. But as you can see, so many of these larger companies are starting to say, all right, it's time. You guys got to come back. Elon Musk just had all the Tesla employees come back. But what's crazy is like a lot of these companies over in like Silicon Valley, their employees were making 150, 200 grand a year. So they moved out to places like Nashville and Texas.
Yeah.
And they're living in these huge houses on their huge salaries. And now these companies are saying, hey, it's time to come back. And they're like, oh, crap.
Yep.
Oh, crap. I didn't tell my company I don't live there anymore. So a lot of people are starting to run into that. And the beauty for us as real estate investors with this is some of these people dropped 100 grand over market value for these houses. And guess what? They either lose their job or they move back. So this creates creative deals for us and things like that. But on the commercial side, with people starting to pull their employees back to the office, I think we're going to see office space start to fill back up again. We're going to see that work from home craze was short-lived. And then while there'll be some companies that continue to do that, I strongly believe employees are more productive in an office than they are at home. They're not doing laundry.
What about that? Yeah, let's talk about that. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that because you've always had that, from what I've seen, you've always had that like work from the office mindset. Yeah. Why do that instead of virtual?
Sure. So the best example I'll give you is a sales team, right? So my sales team here, they have their phones on speaker throughout the day. They're sitting in a bullpen area out here, and their phones are on speaker when they're talking to sellers. And the reason their phones are on speaker, we're able to help them through a conversation. So look at it, scenario one, right? Their phone is up to their ear. They're having a conversation. They get off the call, and we say, hey, how'd that call go? Well, their opinion of that call is they did everything they could do to get that deal to closing. But they're telling us their opinion. If they're live on a seller call and we're able to tell them to mute it real quick, we're like, hey, I think you missed the seller saying this. The seller mentioned something about needing to sell fast or a financial hardship that we missed. Something like that would really help us push the salesperson to get that deal closed on the phone before hanging up. Because if someone hangs up with us, they're probably going to call you or they're going to call another company in the area. So being able to have that live coaching as things occur has helped us significantly close deals. If someone's working from home, yeah, you could go listen to a recorded call or do something like that. But by the time you listen to that call, I mean, we have hundreds of calls that occur here every day. There's no way we can listen to all of them. So if we don't have the ability to listen to that single call, the one they needed help with, that we don't know they needed help with until we hear it, we can't help them close a deal. So having these phones on speaker and having these people in the office, I think that's contributed a ton to our success over the years and how much we have grown because we've been able to just literally help someone in the moment versus having to go back later and train them on something they could have done better.
Yeah, and I think during 2020, I did the stay-at-home thing, and I thought I liked it, but now I'm also the same boat where I'm like, all right, I wanna get a team in here, and I heard Grant Cardone say something very unique. I guess he was talking to someone, and they were saying, oh yeah, I like to work from home, blah 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 blah, and he was like, yeah, you're just a selfish business owner. And the guy was like, what? He's like, yeah, you're just selfish. You care more about yourself than you do the business.
Wow.
Because if you cared about the business more, you would go to the office and, help your employees and be there for your employees. But instead, you'd rather stay at home.
Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, it's kind of true.
I mean, think of the distractions, too. I mean, so you have kids at home, right? So if you work from home, your kids don't quite understand, like, why dad has to be doing this. Why can't dad be answering our questions or playing with us or doing something like that too? And we actually just lost an acquisitions person a couple months back because she had that problem. She was working from home and she was great at what she did, but she said to us, like, hey, I don't know what to do. Like, when I'm at home, my son doesn't understand I'm at work. He wants mom to play with him. He wants these things. And she's like, I can't continue doing this right now. I need to go spend time with my son while he's at this age. And so she left us for that reason. And I respect her for that. But like, I mean, you of all people know that working from home, you are going to have those distractions. Now, like, your wife might say, hey, leave dad alone for right now. But it doesn't matter what she says. The kids don't fully understand why you can't be spending time with them.
Yeah. And there's just stuff going on, dogs and doorbells.
Yeah. And I mean, you even look at, like, I've seen some of these videos out there where people are doing like Zoom calls from like the beach with like a backdrop, acting like they're in an office. I mean, people have traveled. Like, look how busy travel has been and all the people working from home. They're working from random locations all over the place. Do we really believe that they're sitting on a vacation somewhere like in Florida and they're putting all their effort into their 40-hour work week? I mean, I highly doubt it. You may have the select few that are doing that, but I think the majority probably aren't doing that.
100%. Okay, so let's talk about a team. So I guess, what is your goal? Like, your current team, what revenue goal do you think they could bring in? And I guess what do you think, what kind of team does someone need to have $1 million wholesale business?
If you're listening to this podcast, then my guess is you're interested in real estate investing. Some of you are just starting out, while others are trying to scale their business to the next level. But the problem is, with so much information out there, most people don't know which program or coach to trust. Well, I'm a bit biased, but I believe my company, Future Flipper, can help you get to the next level. We've coached thousands of students from all over the world on how to build their real estate investing business. It doesn't matter whether you want to flip, wholesale, or buy rentals. Our coaching program has everything you need to become a great investor. There are many things that we include with coaching, but to give you a few examples, you're going to get an accountability coach. These are people that have had success in their own business, and they want to make sure that you achieve success in yours. We also have all of our documents, our systems, and processes that I've used to buy hundreds of homes. You can copy and paste them directly into your own business. And we have events where you get to meet me, top-level guest speakers, and other students who are crushing it. My students do deals with each other, and I personally do deals with them too. In fact, at a recent event, I just honored over 20 people in our program that made over $1 million in the last year. So if you want to grow your real estate business, head over to futureflipper.com and apply for a call with our team. The call is completely free, and they can help point you in the right direction whether you work with us or not. So go to futureflipper.com and book your call today.
So it really depends on how good your team is. I mean, if you really look for A players, you could bring in $1 million with one acquisitions person. That's not a problem. But I think the thing is people get so excited to hire, like they're nervous, but they're also excited, that they try to hire so fast. And hiring mistakes, to me, is one of the most costly things in a business. If you hire someone because you really need someone, you're already hiring them too late. So you're probably making a decision at that point where you're getting somebody on hoping they help. When really the truth is you hired someone that was mediocre, not someone that was a killer salesperson. And you think you can train that person to be a killer salesperson. Sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes they just don't have the drive or motivation to get there. So we spend a lot more time hiring. I'd rather have it take 4 months to get somebody on than hire someone in a month that will be gone in 4 months. So we can hire one acquisitions person to try to get ourselves to $1 million a year. That's not a problem. As long as that person's hungry, they want to take the calls, they want to do the follow-up, and they want to put in that time and effort, they can get there no problem. But on the other hand, it is my job as a business owner to ensure that I'm giving them closable leads, right? I don't want the acquisitions person be the first person to take the calls in and someone's screaming at them because they got a postcard in their mailbox. I want the acquisitions person getting the people that we've already determined want to sell right in their hands. And then that person can definitely bring in $1 million. I mean, last year, every one of my salespeople brought in over $1 million. So It's definitely possible, but you have to be willing to train people and coach them through it to get them to that next level. I mean, this year we're going to have salespeople bringing in over $1 million. It's going to happen this year. And these are new guys, literally $1 million in their first year. That's going to happen. But I'm also providing them the leads that help them get to that point. The leads is where it all starts.
Got it. What about like, so pretty much every sales guy you hire, they're like a 7-figure. They have to be a 7-figure producer, or else they're like below standard, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And what are the okay? First of all, so this is a lot. So let's go to the hiring process of hiring these people. What are you looking for when you're interviewing acquisition people?
Yeah. So the thing is looks can be deceiving. So when you look at a resume, people can put whatever they want on a resume. They can put they managed a multi-million-dollar company, and I mean, it could be that they worked in a warehouse. So resumes can have literally everything on there. For me, I really don't care about a resume. I don't ask questions in an interview regarding strengths and weaknesses because, frankly, I don't care, right? I remember how many interviews I've sat in, like, throughout my career where people are like, well, tell me 3 strengths and 3 weaknesses. And you can tell them the strengths, but then you have to find a way to actually give somewhat strengths as weaknesses. And you have to figure this out. You're almost just like rehearsing this in your head for an interview.
I know.
So for me, we started relying very heavy on predictive index. So we have every applicant take the predictive index test. And I will tell you what, that is scary accurate. It is crazy how accurate that test is. We had my previous team all take it just to kind of see how accurate it was. And what we found is over the years, the people that were not sitting in the right seats based on predictive index are the people that ultimately fizzled out over the years. So it is crazy accurate when you look at a salesperson and you try to hire based off something like a predictive index. So we have them take the predictive index. We bring them in if they've matched the profile. Once they get into the office and have a conversation with us, we always look at the first interview like them sitting in a seller's home. If they're shy, if they're not asking for the job, if they're not pushing to convince us that they are the person that we need to hire, they're not our candidate. Because keep in mind, we're unleashing these people to go sit in a seller's house. This is the first impression a seller gets of them. And if they're just one-word answers, not carrying on a conversation, they're not going to be our person. And all we look for in an interview is, are you carrying on a conversation? The most important thing people forget in an interview is asking for the job. In the end, saying, hey, I really want this job. Can I have it?
Closing.
Yeah.
Much.
I mean,
closing.
You put that into the perspective of going to a seller's house and signing a contract. They have to ask for the contract, right? They have to ask them to sign it. They have to ask for the business. They have to ask for the deal. They have to build rapport with the sellers. And you'd be surprised how many people come in here. They pass the PI. They come in and sit here for an interview. And it's like, oh, so what do you know about the company? Oh, you're in real estate. Okay. And you're like trying to start a conversation with them, like just, and it's like talking to a brick wall. So for us, everyone that's here has to be so friendly, you don't want to stop talking to them. And if they're not that person, they're not our person.
What about like what profiles are you looking for in the predictive index?
As far as what acquisitions has, I couldn't tell you right off the top of my head. I've got a system that tells me. There's so many PI profiles. Like we had some people come through that like some of the profiles, I'm like, what the heck is this? Like I've never even heard of it. There's like some definitely unicorn type profiles out there. So I definitely lean on predictive index as a company to help me out with some of that, saying, hey, what person would be good for a position like this? Their support's actually really amazing.
Oh, they actually... Oh, okay, yeah. So I know for us, we usually look for like a persuader, a maverick, maybe a captain, something like that.
Yeah, something like a captain and a maverick is really good for a COO role as well. But a maverick is really good for a sales role. Really good for a sales role.
Yeah.
So definitely having someone like that, Captain and Maverick, our COOs, perfect. And getting a salesperson as a Maverick would be absolutely amazing too. I think I've got 1 or 2 Mavericks here right now. That's actually the most successful one we have seen stick with the company.
Yeah, because I think usually Mavericks are like more driven, and I think like me and Ryan are both Maverick profiles. Like our profiles are like very similar.
Yeah. It's a good profile to have because as a Maverick, you fit into a lot of positions. But having a Maverick.
What is yours?
What's that?
What is your profile?
I'm a Maverick as well.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so resume you don't care about. You want them to have a PI, predictive index profile. Also, you want them to be able to start a conversation, try to close. Is there anything else?
Honestly, our interviews are really simple. I say to people in the interview when they sit down, I just say, hey, are you nervous? And usually they always say, yeah, a little bit. And I say, it's okay. It's okay to be nervous, but don't worry. Just pretend like we're friends here, just having a conversation in our living room. And I always say that to people. And I'm putting the idea in their head that we're sitting in a seller's living room having a conversation. And I am the seller and they are the salesperson. So I say, hey, just, shake it out a little bit. We're just friends. Usually when I say that, I'll cuss or something just because it shows them like, wow, okay. Like it actually, you know what, surprisingly, it puts a calmness in the room because most people won't do that. You have to be really professional in an interview. And for me, by dropping something like that, they're like, oh, okay. And you see like a sigh of relief on their face. Like they don't have to be careful. They can just talk to me and have a conversation. And it actually helps a ton, but just getting them to just kind of like sit back, relax. I'll kind of sit back in my chair, like just sit back. Like I'm not sitting up with the perfect posture and kind of show them like, it's okay. We're relaxing. I want to know them for them. I don't want to know what they sat at home rehearsing. And I'll usually say in the interview, like, just relax. We're friends. I don't give a shit about your strengths or weaknesses. I don't care. We're just friends sitting here having a conversation. And that really helps bring them down to earth. And then you really start seeing the real person. And people always think, they might be up the night before Googling what are the top interview questions and what answers can I put in. I promise you, I hit none of those. None of those. Just tell me about your life. Tell me what you like to do for fun, family life, everything like that. And people really open up. They'll start telling us about, if they have family local or if they're married or, have kids or anything like that. If they mention they have kids, I always make sure to point out to them like, hey, we're so supportive of that. Like as your kids have school events or sporting events, I want you to be there for those things. So we believe in a work-life balance where, if you have a parent-teacher conference or something, you need to be there as a parent, and I will help make sure that happens. So we always really point out that work-life balance to them during an interview because we want them, it's not, do I want this person? It's, does this person actually want to work here? And I want people to want the job. I want them to literally say, wow, this is a place that I want to come into and I want to work at. And I look for that very heavily when we're interviewing anyone.
And where do you find these candidates?
So we do multiple things. So we've done Wise Hire in the past. I've heard Indeed works very well. We haven't used Indeed. But one thing we started doing lately is we started depending on recruiters more. At the level we're hiring and the people we want, we started going out to recruiting companies, Car Recruiting, Sharper. We use a lot of those guys to actually bring us viable candidates. And that costs a lot more to bring somebody on. I mean, you're definitely writing a big check to pay the recruiting company, but we wanted to try something different. We wanted to see if we could bring people in. When we look at like a Wise Hire or a job application, posting a job out there, the people that are typically coming and applying are people that are looking for jobs. They're either dissatisfied with their current career or they're currently unemployed because they were laid off or something like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But we wanted to open that pool up so much. We wanted a recruiting company to go out and find us people. Go find us people that have a job, that are happy, that have been there for 8 to 10 years, and pull this person to us because they can make more money and be happier.
So I am sure most of the listeners are going to be very interested in marketing since you've made millions of dollars as a wholesaler and you're pretty good at marketing. So I guess what advice would you give someone who's just starting out and starting to market as a wholesaler, and what advice would you give someone who's looking to scale their wholesale business?
Absolutely. And I get this question a lot. This is actually one of the number one questions people ask. And, the thing is starting out, you just have to start talking to people. You have to, Brent Daniels got his TTP, right? Talk to people. That is so important and so true. You have to spend the time having conversations with people because ultimately we're all going to start out rusty. When I first started, I sucked. I was on the phone. I was dropping leads. I wasn't doing things like I should be. But you learn over time. You get better by doing. So when I started this, I was doing I was doing not cold calling. I'm sorry. I was doing PPC right off the bat. But cold calling and texting wasn't really a thing back then as much as it is now. So I would definitely suggest you pull a list, you skip trace a list, upload it to a texting software and a cold calling software, and start getting out there and just dialing. Text people every single day, thousands of texts a day, dial as well, and just start having conversations with people, and it will ultimately come into a deal. Then as you start getting the revenue coming in from those channels, then you can go ahead and start implementing a pay-per-click marketing or TV if you want, or direct mail. There's a lot of cool things you can implement, but don't go out and start dropping all your budget on a PPC campaign to start. That's just not going to be a good idea because you're going to waste so much money before you start getting the return on investment.
Got it. And I guess since you are an industry leader, where do you see the real estate market going, and where do you see wholesaling going overall in the next 2 to 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I've got to give my personal opinion on the real estate market. I wish I had a crystal ball, but that's not happening. I mean, for me, I don't think we're going to crash. I've got a lot of friends that disagree with me, that they think we're going down. It's not 2008, but they think we're going to see a crash. I don't. Mm-hmm. I think we're going to see a bit of a correction. Even if you look at what's happened in the last 90 days or 60 days, we've seen a lot of drops in prices, but they're not continuing to drop and continuing to drop. If you really look at some of those houses that encountered drops, I saw one that dropped $160,000 and I watched it. I looked at it and I said, you know what? They were over $150,000 too high when they listed. Mm-hmm. So if you really look at where they should have listed, they've dropped 10 to 15 grand off of where they should have been. But people are still under the impression these houses are selling for so much. And a lot of real estate agents out there, they'll just list the house, whatever the seller wants, because they get that 6-month contract. So these real estate agents aren't putting their clients, they're not setting the expectations for their clients that you're listing too high. A lot of them are just listing it to get the listing. And then they're going for that $150,000 drop. I don't think we're going to see that. I think we are still going to see a better correction, but it all depends on what the Fed does with the rates. They've done some pretty significant rates to slow inflation down right now. And of course, you got our government that's slowing inflation by printing another $900 trillion or something for some package. So you never know what's actually going to happen. It's just a wild card. But I strongly don't think we're going to see a huge drop. I think it is going to be a rough go for the next 6 months. And we're going to see a recovery out of that. But the thing is just because the market's shaky doesn't mean you can't make money wholesaling. It just means you got to buy the houses cheaper, and you've got to get to the point where you've got buyers that are buying at a deeper discount. So if you're wholesaling, your buyers are going to want to hedge their bets. They're going to want to have a cheaper purchase price with a larger return built in for them, just in case something else happens with the market.
What about, well, actually, you brought up a good point. So, I believe, prices will stay flat. In some areas, they were inflated, like Joshua Tree. We're seeing them go down. But what about dispositions? Because actually, that's the part that I hear a lot of people are struggling with right now is dispositions, not necessarily acquisitions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of the people that are struggling are the people that over the last year or two have been bragging about how they sell to hedge funds only. And they've been selling to hedge funds for 100, 110% of retail on some of these houses. And then now what happened is that faucet turned off. These hedge funds said, nope, we're not buying anymore. So these people are literally, I mean, they're like, what do? We literally have no buyers because they've sold to a couple of hedge funds. And I've been saying all along, do not sell just to the hedge funds. Make sure you also are building relationships with buyers and you have a viable buyers list, because any shaky market, those hedge funds are going to be the first ones to pull it. And even if they have earnest money deposits in there, they don't care. They'll hand over the earnest money deposit. Look at Open Door. They're offering like 20 grand to some people they're in contract with to literally walk away. So they've got the money to basically say, hey, we're not going to buy this. And you know what? You're not going to go sue them. Good luck. So having a buyer's list is important. But the thing is dispositions is becoming more and more important in a market like this. We have to make more phone calls, more contacts. We have to potentially call 100 people to sell a property. When last year we could take that property, send it out on an email list, and we have 5 offers in the next 10 minutes. Right? Sight on scene. People want to see the properties again. They're not actively looking. You have to get the people to see that it's a good deal and bring them to the table. So dispositions has their work cut out for them. They have a lot of work to do. Luckily, I've got 2 people, so they're pounding the phones, and it's just not that. It's not that easy anymore. They have to push and actually try to sell these deals.
Yeah, I remember like I was doing some wholesaling the last 2 years when I would just like run out of capital or my contractors are way backed up, and like I would be selling deals for like crazy prices. And then I remember, I think in April, it was like, I remember I had the one deal that I sent out like $100K below market value. I got no love, which was very uncommon. And I'm like, okay, that's a little weird. So let me reduce the price a little bit and call some people. Got no love. And then it started going down, and I was like, oh crap, dude. I guess the parade, the parade is over of just selling deals for whatever you want.
Right. And that parade stopped literally overnight. I mean, we came in the next day and like all of a sudden properties that we would have made 50, 60 grand on, we're needing to get reductions by 30 to make 10. You know, it's like, it is crazy. And I don't blame the buyers. I mean, you fix and flip a lot more than I do. And the thing is, if you see something like this, you don't know what is going to happen at that point.
Exactly.
So you've got to tighten your belt saying, hey, I'm not going to get to a position where I'm going to lose money on a property as an investor.
Exactly.
I'm just not going to do it. So I don't blame these buyers for doing that at all. Like, I think they did the right thing. And I think because it didn't drop like they kind of assumed it was going to, they got some killer deals on some properties. I mean, we've got some price reductions we did where we've sold properties significantly lower than we probably would have. And now that the market didn't drop, they might hold it a bit longer, but I think they're still going to come out really good on these properties, better than they thought they would have.
Yeah, 100%. And so I would say wise, where when I first started real estate, I remember I started off as a realtor, and my elders would talk about how real estate was before the market crash. And they were like, man, I was selling so many houses. I remember like there would be times where I'm like, man, I'm not even going to take any more clients because I'm so overwhelmed. I wish I would have made more. I wish I would have worked harder or saved money or bought real estate. And I remember when I first started 7 years ago, I was like, man, I can't wait until that cycle comes. And I knew in 2020, I was like, all right, this is going to be my cycle. This is going to be when there's a huge opportunity to make a lot of money. So I was just like buying. And I was like, I'm just going to ride this wave, but I know that this is temporary. I know this is not forever. Because if that would have lasted for another 5 to 10 years, I would be set. I'd be like way well off. But I knew it was temporary. And then when I seen the rates go up, I was like, all right, that's the end of that, because it was just unsustainable. And like I have 3, I think when the market changed, I had like 12 flips. And of those 12, I sold, I don't know, 8 of them. And then like 3 of them I still have that I'm losing on, but it's just because that's what happens, you know? You just
Absolutely.
ride
And
the
as long
cycles.
as your gain overwrites your loss, then you're already,
Oh, yeah.
it's going to happen.
100%.
So,
100%.
but I mean, you can still
And then-
just get rid of them or decide to hold them long term at that point.
Yeah. I'm trying to dump them because you know what? They're in Joshua Tree, 29 Palms, and they were like deals that I knew when I was buying them. My normal running the numbers, I was like, this doesn't work, but
Yeah.
because of appreciation, I'll make 20, 30, 40, 50, 60K maybe because of
Yeah.
appreciation. But yep, once the rates went up, it just pulled the plug on that. Okay, last part I want to touch on. So you're super deep in California in the wholesale game, investment game, but then you also do Kansas City, right? Is that the only 2 markets you're in?
We've got Texas and Kansas City. So we've got 3 markets going.
What's the difference with those 3 markets, and why did you pick those markets?
Yeah, so California is definitely our wholesale market. Texas and Kansas City, we're looking at more for rental properties. That's going to be the spot where we're going to be holding a lot more properties. The price of the house versus the rental income is very good in those areas. So we also looked at a lot of things like what happened during 2008. We looked at a lot of that data when we were picking our market, and we wanted to see, you know, what happened to foreclosures, how strong was the market during that time. So we decided to go to those markets just because we're like, all right, you know, there wasn't a ton of eviction. There wasn't, I mean, there was, but there wasn't a ton. And we want strong tenants. We want to make sure that as we have these rental properties, we have people that have secure jobs. And so we spent time looking at that stuff, and we narrowed it down to about 5 markets. And then at that point, we decided, all right, it's time to pull the trigger on one of them. So Kansas City is a very, very new market for us. I mean, we're only 60 days old in it right now. But we've got 4 or 5 properties that are potential rentals we're going through inspections on right now. And if those work, we should hopefully have at least 3 of those in the next 30 days.
Got it. And what about Texas? Like what cities in Texas are you doing?
So we're around Dallas. Texas, we learned a lot going to Texas. We thought, oh, whoa, we can do this in California. We can do this in any state. And then we launched Texas, not even realizing it was a non-disclosure state. So that caused a bit of a learning curve. And then we also didn't realize how high the property taxes are in Texas.
Oh,
Oh my gosh, we had so many deals that came through. And at the first look, we're like, oh my God, we're going to make so much money on this thing as a rental. And then we add in the property taxes and we're like, oh gosh.
Wipes it out.
Yeah, it wipes out all the income. So Texas is one that we're sticking with, but we are wholesaling there. If something killer comes along, we'll keep it as a rental. But yeah, those property taxes are brutal over there. So we'll probably end up having the majority of our rentals be other markets.
All right, so let's say someone is, you know, looking to start a new market. What are some things that they should look for?
Absolutely. So, I mean, number one, wholesaling is really possible in almost any market. I say the first thing you do is look at those states that started outlawing wholesaling. So obviously take those out and then start looking at something else. It depends on really what their goal is. If their goal is to truly wholesale, then you want to choose a market that allows for a large return. I mean, California is fantastic at that. But if you're looking for more rental properties and things like that, you want to start looking at what are the rental rates versus the house purchase in some of these markets. That's why we chose areas like Kansas City, because when you look at an $80,000 house that can bring in $1,400, $1,500 a month in some cases, that return is fantastic for long-term growth. So really it depends on what someone's goal is. I mean, wholesaling is not really your means to an end. Wholesaling is meant to bring in the revenue possible to go into other things like rental properties or apartments or duplexes, triplexes. It's meant to get you to that next level. So if the end goal is rentals, choose a market where you want to hold rentals. And Florida is a great market for that as well. Fantastic. Airbnbs, things like that too. So figure out what your end goal is and then choose a market that fits that criteria.
And what about like population? Do you look at that or like population growth?
I mean, for us, we don't really go into any market or buy in any market that has under 50,000 population, and it has to be within 40 miles to a metro area. And if it's outside of that, we don't buy. It just gets too far out in the sticks, and you got a lot less buyers out there.
Beautiful. All right. Well, thank you for coming on, Scott. I think this was very, very informative, and I'm still happy to see you growing and growing and growing. I'm excited to see, like, you know, if you end up being a $100 million company. So yeah, I guess if people want to reach out to you, or if people want to see what you have going on, where's the best place for them to go?
Definitely Instagram or Facebook. Both those social media platforms are good. I do try to get to responding to messages and things like that. Unfortunately, I'm a little more delayed than I would like to be because of the quantity of them, but definitely you can reach out to me through that. YouTube, we put out a lot of YouTube videos as well. So our goal is to try to help as many people as we possibly can. And man, I appreciate you having me on here. I mean, you say you've seen me grow. I've seen you grow over the years too. And it's cool to see, you know, where you've landed as well, you know, stepping into Future Flipper and doing that. I mean, it's a killer opportunity for you. Proud of you for doing that. I think that you fit that well, and it's cool to see you grow with that. It's exciting.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. And if you're still listening to this, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and then again, come out to Vegas, September 26th through the 28th. Scott's company is actually sponsoring us. It's REI. What's it called?
The Lead Gen Pros. So it's actually my
Lead Gen Pros.
Company. Yeah.
Got it. Lead Gen Pros. They have a VA company. What different services do they offer?
So we offer TV ad placement, radio placement, VA services, cold calling services. So we can help you get your marketing out there in front of the sellers you want. Some of the TV ads we've done have been pretty cool.
All right, beautiful. Well, all right, guys, thank you for listening to the Future Flipper podcast. We are out. Peace.